Hey, and welcome to English Coffee House. I'm Daria.
And I'm Chris. We're really happy you're here with us.
Get comfortable.
And let's start with today's conversation.
I've been thinking about that word, productive. People use it so much now. Sometimes it sounds healthy, and sometimes it sounds a little haunted.
Haunted is a good word for it. Like someone says, I had such a productive day, but when you really look at it, they barely ate, they answered messages at midnight, and they're running on coffee and nerves.
Exactly. And somehow that version still gets praised.
Yeah, there's almost this quiet respect for exhaustion. If you look tired, people assume you must be doing something important.
Which is strange because tired and effective are not the same thing at all.
No, not at all. Actually, some of my worst work happened when I was pushing too hard. I was doing a lot, but I wasn't thinking clearly. I was just moving fast.
That's the trap, isn't it? Movement can feel like progress. You answer emails, make lists, jump from one thing to another, and at the end of the day, it looks full, but inside it can feel oddly empty.
I know that feeling. You sit down at night and think, what did I actually do? Not because you did nothing, but because everything was scattered.
Yes, and scattered work is still tiring, maybe even more tiring.
I think so. It pulls your mind in too many directions. You never really arrive anywhere mentally.
I noticed that with myself last year. I had a period where I was trying to be very disciplined. I woke up early, planned everything, timed everything. On paper, it looked great, very organized, very impressive.
But
I became weirdly brittle. That's the best word for it. If one small thing changed, like a call took longer than expected, or I slept badly, I felt irritated in a way that didn't match the situation.
Because the whole system depended on perfect conditions.
Exactly. It worked beautifully as long as I behaved like a machine.
That's such a modern fantasy, isn't it? This idea that if we just find the right method, we can remove our human side from the process.
Yes, no moods, no low energy days, no distractions, no emotional life, just output.
And then when reality appears, which it always does, we blame ourselves instead of the system.
I used to do that. I think, why can't I keep up with my own plan? But the plan had no softness in it, no room to be a person.
I've become more protective of that softness. I didn't used to be. For a long time, I thought rest was something you earned after real work. And real work meant pushing until you felt slightly miserable.
Slightly?
All right, more than slightly.
Thank you for being honest.
I'm trying. But yes, I had that mindset for years, especially because I came from an environment where being busy felt like proof. Proof that you were serious, ambitious, responsible. If you weren't overloaded, maybe you weren't trying hard enough.
I think a lot of people grow up with that message in different forms. Even if nobody says it directly, you feel it in the atmosphere.
Definitely, and it can be hard to question because working hard is not a bad thing. That's what makes this topic tricky. The problem isn't effort. The problem is when effort becomes constant pressure.
That's such an important difference. I like intense periods, actually. I can enjoy them. If I'm focused on something meaningful, I don't mind working deeply and feeling stretched a little.
Same. I don't think calm means doing everything slowly all the time.
No, not at all. Sometimes a full day feels satisfying. You're alert, engaged, maybe a little tired by the end, but it's a clean kind of tired, not that hollow, drained feeling.
Clean tired. I know exactly what you mean.
It's the difference between using your energy and leaking it.
That's really well put, because burnout often feels less like one big crash and more like a slow leak. You don't always notice it at first.
Yes, it can look normal for a while. You still function, you still show up, but small signs begin to appear.
Like what for you?
I stop feeling curious. That's one of the first things. I become very narrow, very task-oriented. I don't want conversation. I don't want surprises. I don't want anything extra. I only want to get through the day.
That's interesting. For me, it shows up as resentment. I start getting annoyed by things that normally feel manageable. A simple request feels invasive. A small delay feels personal.
That makes sense. It's like your inner space gets too crowded and then anything new feels like an attack.
Exactly. And I become less generous, not intentionally, but emotionally. I have less room.
I felt that too. Burnout is often described as tiredness, but it changes your personality in small ways. Or maybe not your personality exactly, but your access to it.
Yes, that feels accurate.
You're still yourself, but the best parts of you are harder to reach.
Your humor, your patience, your imagination.
Even your ability to enjoy simple things. I remember during a very busy period, I met a friend for dinner, and the whole time, my brain was still somewhere else. He was talking, and I was nodding, but inside, I was making a list.
That's such an uncomfortable feeling.
It was. And then I went home and thought, why am I doing all this work if I'm too absent to enjoy one evening with someone I care about?
That question can be quite sobering.
It was for me. Not dramatic, just quietly sad.
Quietly sad sometimes is stronger than dramatic. It stays with you longer.
True.
I also think burnout can happen when the work itself is not the only problem. Sometimes it's the emotional layer around the work, the pressure to prove something, the fear of falling behind, the feeling that if you stop, everything will collapse.
Yes, two people can have the same workload, and one copes much better than the other because the meaning around it is different.
Exactly. If you're doing a lot, but you feel choice, support, and some sense of direction, it lands differently in the body.
And if you're doing a lot from fear, it becomes heavy very quickly.
Fear is exhausting, even when you're sitting still.
Especially then, maybe.
You know, I sometimes wonder whether people really want productivity or whether they want the feeling that their life is under control.
That's a great question. I think often it's the second one. Productivity becomes this emotional promise, like if I just organize myself well enough, I'll finally feel calm.
And then the irony is the chase for that calm can create the opposite.
Right, because now the system itself becomes another pressure.
Another thing to maintain.
Another thing to fail at.
Yes.
I had a period where I tracked everything. Hours worked, workouts, water, reading, sleep, even how many times I checked my phone.
Oh no.
I know, it started innocently. I thought it would help me understand my habits, and for maybe a week, it did. But then I became obsessed with the image of a good day.
Not the day itself, the image.
Exactly. I was managing the record of my life instead of living it. If I had a lovely, spontaneous afternoon, but it didn't fit the structure, part of me saw it as failure.
That's such a painful way to treat a good moment.
It is. And once I noticed that, I had to step back because I didn't want to become efficient at the cost of being present.
I think presence is underrated. It doesn't look impressive from the outside. There's no chart for it, no streak, no neat little proof, but it changes the quality of everything.
It really does. Even work. I actually do better when I'm more present, even if I do slightly less.
That's the thing people don't always believe at first. There's this assumption that kindness toward yourself will make you lazy.
Yeah, I've heard that fear many times, and honestly, I've had it too.
Me too.
Because part of you thinks if I stop pushing, maybe I'll stop moving.
But for me, the opposite happened. When I became less harsh with myself, I became more consistent. Not more intense, but more stable.
Stable is such a powerful word. It sounds modest, but it gives you so much over time.
It does. Intensity gets all the attention, but stability quietly builds life.
That sounds like something I wish I'd understood earlier.
Maybe some things only make sense when you've already pushed too far once or twice.
Probably. There's a certain kind of wisdom that only arrives after you get tired of your own patterns.
That's true. At some point, you just can't romanticize exhaustion anymore. It loses its shine.
Yes, and you start asking more practical questions. Not, how much can I squeeze into this week, but what pace can I actually live with?
That question feels very adult to me.
It does. Less glamorous, maybe, but more honest.
And honesty can be calming. You stop negotiating with fantasy.
I like that. Stop negotiating with fantasy.
We all do it a little. We imagine the ideal version of ourselves and then suffer because we can't operate like that every day.
The ideal version usually has unlimited focus, perfect sleep, no emotional needs, and somehow also a beautiful apartment.
Of course, and probably a homemade soup in the fridge.
Naturally, and 6 close friendships, but plenty of alone time.
Miraculous life.
Completely realistic.
Very grounded, yes.
But I think there's a relief in admitting that a good life may look less polished than we imagined. Maybe a little slower in some places. Maybe unfinished or on the edges.
And still deeply good.
Yes, maybe even better because it has space in it.
Space matters so much. Space to think, to change your mind, to recover from a hard day, to have a conversation that doesn't lead anywhere useful.
Like this one.
Exactly like this one.
That might be the hidden problem with burnout. It doesn't just take energy, it takes space. And without space, everything starts feeling mechanical.
That's true. Even joy starts to feel scheduled.
That's such a bleak sentence.
It is, but I know the feeling. When even pleasure becomes another task. Relax properly, rest efficiently, recover in the correct way.
Yes, even rest gets performance pressure now.
Which completely ruins it.
Completely.
I suppose the kind of productivity I trust now is quieter, less visible, more connected to how I feel while I'm living my day, not just what I can show at the end of it.
I feel the same. I still care about doing good work, a lot, but I care more than I used to about the condition I'm in while I'm doing it.
Because that condition becomes your life, really.
Exactly. Not just the result, but the atmosphere around the result.
And atmosphere stays with you. You can finish a successful week and still feel terrible if the atmosphere was wrong.
That's very true.
Whereas a quieter week can feel meaningful if you moved through it in a way that still felt like yourself.
Yes, I think that's what I'm looking for more and more. Not a perfect system, just a way of working that doesn't ask me to disappear in order to succeed.
That's such a gentle standard and somehow still a strong one.
Maybe the strongest ones are gentle.
Maybe they are. Thanks for spending this time with us.
We really enjoyed having you here and sharing this conversation.
Keep listening
And we'll see you soon.
here at English Coffee House.